greetings, Ian from RTO here. Welcome to another album ranking, second show of the day today. We've done a happy birthday to Charles, so let's get to the nitty gritties of everything. So today's first album ranking of the week will be a band from Canada, and they're called Mystery. They're a Canadian progressive rock band formed in 1986 by a multi-instrumentalist called Michel Saint-Pierre. Now, in 86 he was a studio sound engineer at Studio Illusion, and he met a keyboard player called Sylvain Descharnay, and they decided to form a band and call it Sentry, but was renamed to Mystery at the suggestion of Sylvain's girlfriend. When it was discovered there was a brand in France called Sentry, so they changed their name. Took them a little while to get a stable lineup, but they've had one or two people in the band, including Benoit David, who went on to sing with Yes, of course. We'll go through who's in the band as we go through the catalogue. They've released 7 albums up to date. They're all very good. Really like it, enjoy listening to them. Their brand of prog music is not your normal, it's just very chilled out music and some great vocals. One thing that they've had 3-4 singers in this band, and they're all very, very similar sounding, so you've got that consistency right through the catalogue. So coming in at number 7 then is that debut album from 1996, Theatre of Mind. There was a major lineup shift following the release of this album. Not only was it the last album to feature Richard Addison and Stéphane Paraudot, it was the only album that featured Michel Panchot, and the last album till 2010 to feature Benoit Dupuis. So on here we've got Gary Savoy on lead and backing vocals, Michel Saint-Pierre on the electric guitars and 6 and 12 string guitars, classical guitars and synths, Stéphane Paraudot on the drums, Benoit Dupuis on keyboards, Michel Panchot on classic and acoustic guitars, Richard Addison on bass guitar. Additional musicians on here are Patrick Bourque on bass and Patrice Bernard on keyboards. Our first track is the title track, Theatre of the Mind. Some really nice guitar work on this. The use of the acoustic and classical guitars worked really well on that. Very, very good track. Then we get a track called Lonely Heart. Now, sounds like a saxophone, but there's no one credited of playing a saxophone on this. So is it a sample being played on a keyboard? But it does add to the track, because without that the track would be a little bit thin. So adding that sax sound in was a good choice. Peace of Mind. What a really nice melody on this. The guitars work well together on this. Excellent track. Virtual Mentality. It's a very short piece. It's written by Benoit Dupuis, so I'd say he plays all the keyboards on this. It's really nice. It's a very nice little introduction to the next song, which is called The Inner Journey Part 1. It's a real gentle song, some nice keyboards, and the acoustic guitars have a really nice effect on this. Then we get my favourite track on this album. It's called Black Roses. It's a modern sounding prog track. Again, we got it sounds like flute, but there's no one, I believe, that's actually credited to playing the flute. So it could be done on keyboards, but it really adds to the track. It gives it an extra layer. Then we get this very short piece called Rhythm Nanisa. Very short keyboard piece again. It's very good. That goes straight into In My Dreams. A great vocal here from Gary Savoy. Lots of layers of acoustic guitar and keyboards. Very, very strong track. Believe in Your Dreams. This has got a very Vangelis start on the keyboards. Very, very good guitar solo here from Michel St. Pierre. Excellent track. And then we get the Inner Journey Part 2. Discontinuation from the Part 1. Why did they split it up? I'm not quite sure. I think if it had been together as one track, it would have worked a lot better. Having the tracks in between, that sort of confuses me a bit. It's the only criticism I've got of this album. Very pleasant album, experimenting of course. The sound's there. It's a really strong album. I do like it, so I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 6, we've got the 7th and most current album released in 2018, Lies and Butterflies. So on here we've got Jean Pagenaud on vocals, keyboards and flute, Michel St. Pierre on the electric and acoustic guitars and keyboards, Françoise Fournier on bass guitar, Taurus pedals and keyboards, Sylvain Monod on guitars and keyboards, Jean-Sébastien Gauthier on drums, and Antoinette Michaud on keyboards. First track on this one is called Looking for Something Else. It's a proper prog epic, 16 minutes and 54 seconds of modern day progressive rock at its best. Lots of them elements of traditional 70s prog, obviously done with technology and gust from the 21st century. It's a solid track. I love that track. Come to Me, a really good track, a great vocal here from Jean Pagenaud. As I said, the vocals on these albums are all good. Little bit of a rip off of the guitar riff, sounds very mistreated by Deep Purple, but who cares. How Do You Feel? Now this is one of the tracks that's a little bit lacklustre. It's nothing that really hits the nail on the head. It's pleasant, but it's missing something. Then we get a track called Something to Believe In. Again, this is a nice solo, very gentle progressive track, some nice keyboards and atmosphere on that one. Dare to Dream, again it's one of those tracks on here that's not as strong as a lot of them. It's pleasant enough, but it just lacks something. Where Dreams Come Alive, some really good guitar work on this, the best on the album. Sort of these long winding notes, excellent. Then we get my favourite track on here, another epic. It's called Chrysalis. Again, we've got all them really good elements and how the track builds and the different layers and the little guitar pieces. Strong track, and I love this track a lot. Good way to end the album. Another really good album. A couple of tracks on here that are not as powerful, but the two epics are brilliant, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.4. Okay then.
Something I found on Wikipedia. WBLS is an urban adult contemporary FM
I forgot to send her off.
New York City.
Excuse me, Alexa, cancel. I forgot to hit the red button. I don't know how she started off. Anyway, where was we? I'm leaving that in, forget it, it's quite funny. So coming in at number 5, we have the second album released in 1998. It was the last mystery album to feature Gary Savoye, as well as the first to feature Patrick Bourke as a full member of the band, and it was the first drumming work for Steve Gannay in the band. So we got Gary Savoye at lead vocals, Michel St. Pierre on guitars, Patrick Bourke on the bass, Steve Gannay on drums. Additional musicians for us on this one are Diane Herbert on backing vocals of one of the songs and Oliver Dremers on violin. Track 1 on here is called Legend. This is a track that's got a nice beat to it. The guitar work is very good. Drums from Steve on this are really good. It's a good way for him to start his work with the band. Then we get Destiny. I love the riffs on this. Some great strong riffs, a nice guitar solo as well. Strong track. Slave to Liberty. Again, there's terrific guitar work here from Michel St. Pierre. It's got one of the best solos on the album. Before the Dawn. One of these tracks that starts off very acoustically, and then you've got these great riffs, terrific modern day prog track. Then we get my favourite track on here. It's called Queen of Vajra Space. Bit of an epic. It's a 9-minute track. I like how this builds up. Some driving riffs. Great vocal from Gary. Fantastic track. The Morning Man. I just love how the acoustic sounding guitars and the electric guitars intertwine between each other. What makes this though is the vocal delivery from Gary. Excellent stuff. Submerged. Another track dominated by Michel St. Pierre's guitar work. Absolutely amazing stuff on that. Very intricate. Shadow of the Light. It's just got one of them wonderful drum beats that's sort of behind the rest of the song, but it works. It's them half beats are really good. The swirling keyboards on this are terrific. Great way to end the album. Another solid album. Not a bad track on this. The guitar work from Michel St. Pierre on this is brilliant. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay, then coming in at number 4, we have the 5th album released in 2012. The World Is a Game. Now, by this time, Mysteria was down to 2 people in the band. It was just a duo of Michel St. Pierre and Benoit David. And it was the last original release with Benoit before his departure the following year. So you've got Benoit David on vocals, Michel St. Pierre on all the guitars and keyboards, but there's some additional musicians. Try musicians, Iain. You've got Antoine Fafard on fretted and fretless basses and acoustic guitars, Nick de Virgilio on drums, and Marlene Provencher-Leduc flute. First track on here is called A Morning Rise. Now this is a very short piece. It's got an acoustic guitar and some nice flute, very pastiche. Then we get a track called Pride, my second favourite track on the album. Yeah, on this. I love the vocal on this from Benoit. He's such a great singer. He got some really good drums here from Nick. The guitar work from Michel is absolutely wonderful. He's a very underrated guitar player. Superstar is our next track. Good guitar solo here from Michel St. Pierre. And the keyboards really sound nice. It's a bit of a chill track on this album. The Unwinding of Time. It's a very short 49-second burst of keyboards which really goes straight into the title track, The World Is a Game. It's a wonderful track. It's got some lovely textures and keyboard, very atmospheric. The keyboards are wonderful, and a very, very good vocal from Benoit David. Dear Someone, just a track that builds up some nice acoustic guitars, and then you get these different layers of keyboard sounds. A wonderful vocal, strong track. Time goes by. Got this real strong riff in this, and everything works around this riff all the way through the track. The keyboards just complement that riff, and Benoit David's vocals on this really do add extra value. Then we get my favourite track on here. It's actually one of my favourite tracks by Mystery. It's got elements of gentle acoustics, and then you get these real heavy riffs that sort of complement the gentler side of it. It's a great vocal from Benoit. And then the middle piece, you get them heavy drums and guitars, with the flute coming in at the end, and then it just get that gentle finish. Terrific track. Again, a very solid album. Not a bad track on these albums. Doesn't matter which one you put on, they're all good. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.6. Okay then, coming in at number 3, we got the third album, released in 2007, Beneath the Veil of a Winter's Face. First album to feature Benoit David. So it's got Benoit David on the lead vocals, Michel Saint-Pierre on guitars and keyboards, Steve Garnet on the drums, Patrick Bourque on the bass. First track on here is called As I Am. Love this. The guitar work is fantastic. But I think the whole band play well on this track. It's a wonderful track and a great vocal from Benoit. And then we get the title track, Beneath the Veil of a Winter's Face. Start off with some bass, the guitars come in, and then everything just sort of extra layers keep coming through the whole track, and it's a great vocal from Benoit David. Then we get a track called Snow White, and the bass line from Patrick reminds me of the start of I think Another Brick in the Wall Part 1. The striking keyboards from Michel Saint-Pierre is excellent. Travel to the Night. The guitar work on this, it reminds me of some of the Steve Howell style guitar and a little bit of John Mitchell. You got the gentle side of Steve Howell, and then you got the aggressive sort of guitar work of John Mitchell, all sort of mixed into this track. It's excellent, great track. The Scarlet Eye. This is their sort of attempts of a commercial record. It's okay. I've got no problem with it. Bit upbeat, solid track. Then my favourite track on here, The Third Dream. This is a sort of a bluesy sort of riff. It's where blues sort of meets progressive rock. It's really good. I love the keyboards on this. Very, very good. The Voyage to the Other Side. More magical guitar from Michel Saint-Pierre. His guitar work on this track is outstanding. The Sailor and the Mermaid. This is a really slow 12 sort of mid-tempo song. What I like about this is some of the guitar work. It's very delicate in places, and then it can get aggressive. Really strong track. Then we get a track called The Awakening. It's one of these epics. Some wonderful keyboard work in this. Benoit's vocals are fantastic. Just an amazing piece of music. The Preacher's Fall. One of the heaviest tracks I think that Mysteria ever did. The riff is really heavy. Great way to end this album. Again, we've got such a solid album from top to bottom. It's got some of the heaviest tracks that the band ever did. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.8. Okay then, coming at number 2, we got the fourth album from 2010, One Among the Living. This is Benoit Dupuis rejoined the band after 12-year absence, and they had a second guitarist come in, Dean Baldwin. And it was the first album that Francois Fournier came in, who had replaced Patrick Bourque. So on here we have got Benoit David on the vocals, Michel Saint-Pierre on guitars and keyboards, Steve Garnet on drums, plus a few session musicians like Benoit Dupuis comes back on keyboards, Dean Baldwin is the extra guitars, Francois Fournier just play a little bit of bass. as well. So, first track on here is called Among the Living. It's one of them intros. There's a little bit of vocal from Benoit, really is good, and then I go straight into a track called Wolf. It's one of them tracks that sort of continues on from the one before, and Benoit's vocals are really good. Lovely keyboards and guitars on this fantastic track. Between Love and Hate, a lovely gentle track, a mixture of acoustic and electric guitars with a lovely keyboard line all the way through this one. Really strong track. Till the Truth Comes Out. This is one of their little epics. This has got some heavy guitar, heavy metal sounding in it. Really strong. And then it goes into this mid-pace song with these little bits of flourish of heaviness that really add to the track. Then we get Chameleon Man. It's a more gentle track, some strong riffs in it. The keyboard solo is amazing in this one. Then we get a track called Through Different Eyes, and this is split up into 6 parts. Some amazing piece of music. First part is called When the Sorrow Turns to Pain. This starts with some nice gently keyboards and gets some amazing guitar. The drumming on this is superb. Part 2, which is Apocalyptic Visions of Paradise. This part is very short, but it's dominated by a great guitar solo from Michel St. Pierre. Part 3, called So Far Away. This actually is the closest I've got Benoit David sounding like John Anderson. Very similar voice to John Anderson. I think he went and he was in a Yes tribute band before he joined Yes. Sort of complements John as a singer. Really, really strong. Then we get part 4, which is The Point of No Return. This is the heaviest part of the track. It's got some great bass line there. The riffs are good. But again, Benoit's vocal is fantastic. Part 5, The Silent Screen. Again, we sort of simmer back down to a bit of gentleness. Lovely little bits of keyboard on this. Then we build up to some strong riffs to go into the last part, which is Dancing with Butterflies. Very strong riffs, and then we get that lovely sort of gentleness to end the track. I think this is my favourite piece on the album. I think it's Benoit David's best vocal he did in Mystery. Then we get a track called Among the Living. Another good track with some driving riffs again. Amazing vocals as ever. The Falling Man. Again, one of the heavier tracks on here. This is very more Dream Theater. That sort of riffs on that. Excellent track. Sailing on a Wing. I like tracks that go straight into guitar solos. Then it goes into a gentle piece with some very delicate guitar work. Really nice way to end the album. Some great harmonies on this track. This is the best Mystery album that Benoit David done. There's nothing wrong with this. Top to bottom, it's just a brilliant album to play. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. So my number 1 album. I just thought this was... They really hit what they were looking for, I think, on this album. The 6th album, released in 2015, Delusional Rain. New lineup of the band as well. Also features 2 guest musicians that have played on the tour. So on here we've got Jean Pagenaud on vocals, keyboards and flutes, Michel St. Pierre on guitars and keyboards. We've got Benoit Dupuis back on the keyboards, Françoise Fournier on bass, Sylvain Monano on electric guitar, Jean Sebastian quartet on the drums. We got an additional guitarist. We got Antoine Michaud and Sylvain Descostux, or Costo, I don't know. His name's got little arrows and all sorts in his letters. Okay, first track is the title track, which is called Delusional Rain. What an opening to this! Starts very, very gentle, and it keeps building up. It takes 4 minutes before you get Jean coming in with some vocal. It's terrific. It's not one of them tracks, when you start singing, you're anticipating the vocal. Some delicate touches of keyboards and guitars. It's a fantastic track to open up the album. I See If I See You. Some of the acoustic work on reminds me so much of the early Pink Floyd. Well, some of the stuff on Atom Heart Mother, not the epic, but that acoustic sound, really good. A little bit of folk in there as well. Very, very good. The Last Glass of Wine. What I love about this is the gentleness of the keyboards and some strings. Then you get these heavy, gritty guitar riffs. Absolutely terrific track. Then we get my favourite track on here. This is an epic of them as they come. It's called The Willow Tree. What can you say about this? Got everything you need from great long prog tracks. Great vocals, great drumming, delicate bits of keyboard, delicate bits of guitar, heavy guitar, grinding keyboards. My favourite track, and it's one of my favourite pieces by this band. It is just amazing. Then we get Wall Street King. Love this track as well. What I love about this, halfway through you get the Hammond organ with a bit of bass guitar. Oh, just what you need. Love the Hammond organ, as you know. A Song for You. This is so 70s prog. This is just a track that belongs in the 70s. Lots of Hammond organ. The drumming is just mind-blowing. This could have been recorded in the 70s. I don't know if this is sort of a homage to the great prog bands, but it is just an amazing piece of music. Great way to end the album. I love this album. What I like about it, it has got a lot of elements of 70s prog, but modern twists. But that last song is purely 70s prog. You've got flute on here, you've got Hammond organ. This is the most underrated of progressive rock album, I think. It's a terrific album, but the whole band, they are very underrated. Go and check them out. So I'm going to give this album an RTO ranking of 9.5. So there you go. If you've never heard these, go and check them out. They are really good. Especially this album, Delusion Rain. I'd say start off with this one, because you get the crossover between 70s prog and 2000s prog. It's a fantastic album. Okay, I'll be back later. I'm going to take a bit of a break now. But I'll be back later for a classic album, and it's not just a classic album, it is a one-off album. They only made the one album, and it's Horse, with the self-titled Horse. Now, Horse featured ex-Atomic Rooster and Spinal Tap drummer Rick Parnell. So join me for that. So bye for now.